Right now, I think that left turn lane at Eagle Road was only allowing 3 cars, I
It's
think.
insane.
That light is.
Right?
It's
And
insane.
so it's like it's not moving. Is that what you experienced, Jenny? And I'm a
Yeah,
little shy to go into the side all the way from our office.
all the way around. Yeah,
There are people
no,
doing that.
They
yeah,
are.
I won't do that
Puff
either.
of smoke.
I'll wait
It's
until I
all-
get far enough down.
Whenever you're ready, I'll put it off to stop the recording.
Yeah. those-
Ready?
Ready. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead. I call the January Guam Board of Accountancy meeting to order. Present are board member Sean Phillips, Jenny Chu, myself, and board member Francis Quinto, who's participating through Zoom. And we have executive director Dave Sanford. So just to reconfirm, the meeting has been noticed twice, which is 1 week and 2 days, I think, for the meeting.
Right.
January 14th, January 9. So it's been properly noticed and so we can move forward. The first item on the agenda is the minutes from last month's meeting, which I was not in attendance. So
Francis, videos on the-
it looks like last meeting, everyone was present. There were no others that attended from public.
I move to approve.
Second, okay, the minutes of the last month's meeting are approved. So moving on to the next item on the agenda is the old business. So do you want to go, Dave, on the endowment fund?
Yeah, the endowment fund. The endowment fund wound up as of the end of December with a 5.541 million balance in the account. And then this is the summary as of January 14th, where it lost the 11,000, so it moved down to 5.503. So basically, we're holding at the 5.5 million mark, you know, the typical up and down market swings. We paid 50,000 in expenses for the year, which is the investment manager expenses, but if you look on the second page over here, the December statement, we essentially ended the year with the 5.541 million. And then this little section here in the middle called time weighted performance, we're showing performance for the year to date 2024 was 10.4%. But annualized since 11 November 2015, which is when the Raymond James people essentially took over the account, we've shown a 6.53% performance, and our 20-year investment plan was planned at 6%. So we're still in keeping with that, a little better overall. So now it's been 9 years, I guess, so going on 10. So we're still hanging in there. We've funded all together now, counting the last 200,000, probably close to 600,000 or 700,000 in the expenses for the last 9 years. So we're doing okay. Anybody have any questions on the fund?
This is value as of 12/31.
Right, the December statement, yeah, it's 12/31. We had the you go towards the back, it has the actual deposit information. I think it's on page 19 or 68, whatever. But it shows our $225,000 deposit for the year, which was our contribution for the year, and the 50,000 paid in fees. And total income between capital gains, dividends, interest, etc., was 226,000. And we, even though the endowment fund hasn't actually charged us yet, we spent about 200,000. Well, a little less than 200,000 on Dr. Conrad's visiting professor
Okay.
for the year. I think it might be more like 170, something like that, total expenses.
Okay. Did you guys talk about Dr. Conrad last meeting?
A little bit, but I've been informed since then that he is officially now a Guam associate professor.
Like professor, nice. Okay.
University of Guam associate professor.
Okay. Okay,
His all of his paperwork is signed off, so he's officially on Guam salary staff now. And UOG staff now. So we're up for I think Dr. Jones is looking for to pursue someone to come for the summer program this year. And I'm not sure who that might be at this point. There's two people we have interest in. That was
Okay.
Ruben Davila, and the other one is Andrew. I can't pronounce his last name, but he's from not Seattle, Washington. What's the other side? The eastern side of Washington State.
Spokane.
Spokane. Yeah.
Okay.
He's a full professor there, so he's interested in coming.
How did they find him? Or
I've met him through NASBA.
Through NASBA, okay.
So I just told him, he said he was interested because he'd heard about the professor visiting program through
Okay.
Ray Johnson. And I said, well, if you're interested, send me your CV and I'll just forward it to the
Okay.
dean. And once it goes to the dean, it's between you and her and
yeah.
whatever. So,
Okay.
you know, they figure out what they need. So Dr. Jones said she was gonna get in contact with him.
Okay.
And that's where it stands at this point.
Well, that's good. I think it was successful. The way.
I think it worked out well, and it gave us an opportunity for us to determine whether we really wanted to, you know, him on a long-term basis, and also for him to determine whether he really wanted to make the commitment to move. Because he was very interested in coming, but he was a little leery of just picking up and moving.
Yeah.
After being where he was for 20-something years.
Dr. Conrad, he responded to UOG's, I guess, search. Is that
Yeah, they found him through the faculty search.
faculty search?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was a faculty search committee that interviewed him and 2 or 3 other people. And he was the one that turned out that was most interested in actually coming. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I think there was somebody else that they were looking at, but the person wanted a lot more money than this. And would not be happy with the go home salaries.
I saw that email from Tolling regarding asking him for CPE training in February.
Mhm.
Now, is that out of the goodness of his heart, or is that
That's
no?
the other half.
Okay.
That's the other half of his 8-hour commitment
Okay.
for the fall quarter.
Okay.
Semester.
Okay.
Fall semester.
So I'm very like, okay.
Yeah, we require each visiting professor to provide 8 hours of continuing professional education free to the general public in Guam.
Yes. Okay.
He did 2 4-hour courses in the spring.
That's
He's
right.
done one
Okay.
4-hour course in the fall, and then, you know, because of it's November and December, that's 2 months that are taken up with holidays.
Yeah,
So we
nobody's
decided
here,
to
really.
defer it
Okay.
until this quarter, because
Okay.
he knew he was sticking around, so he said, can we defer it to sometime next quarter
Okay.
or next semester?
That's
We
good.
said fine. So that's what she's talking about.
Great. Okay. That's
So
good.
we're all entitled to 4 more hours of free CP. Okay,
So that's
we can move along
To new business.
Licenses.
yes. Okay. Request for approval.
Yeah.
So we have what the
Certificates and licenses.
certificates and licenses.
There's nobody from Guam.
Oh, interesting.
There's a few reinstatements, and there's a couple of people moving from inactive license to a test license, or a non-attest license, but active non-attest. But in this instance, nobody from Guam. There's no local candidates. But there's a total of 54, I think. New licenses. Yeah, 54 new licenses. And as usual, they're from everywhere, Taiwan.
Yeah, everywhere.
Japan,
Saudi Arabia,
you name it, Saudi Arabia, India.
UK.
Yeah, no issues with any of these.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second, okay. Was that Francis who moved? Okay.
No,
Colleen.
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 Okay, hi, Tolling. So I guess for the
I'm sorry
record,
I'm late.
Board Member Tolling Tactino, just joined us.
Okay, so the next item I had is this pathway legislation summary, which is probably a little bit difficult to read, this one.
Oh, that one, okay.
Yeah, so I put the whole thing in here so that, you know, if you wanted to, you can go home and read it with your magnifying glass. I mean, I can actually read it because I have monovision.
Is this the same, wow, is this the same one you sent? on email
This
or no?
one is updated as of yesterday.
Oh, yesterday,
So,
okay.
yeah, I updated it with the thing I sent out this morning, but so we now have 9 states that have introduced legislation. So you have Texas, Ohio, Utah, Arkansas, Maryland, Virginia, Indiana, Florida, and Oregon. That's 9 states that have actually introduced legislation to essentially revert back to accepting a bachelor's degree and 2 years of experience for licensure, rather than in place of 150 hours and 1 year of experience. None of them have essentially removed the 150, meaning if you have 150 hours of education, you only need 1 year of experience for licensure. If you have less,
Okay.
meaning just a BA degree, which is usually less than 150, you can get licensed with 2 years of experience, which is the way it was for an awful long time before they went to the 150. There are a number of people in terms of AICPA and NASBA that are concerned about mobility issues.
Yeah.
Substantial equivalency and reciprocity, but like I said before, there's no one jurisdiction that can claim that they're superior to any other jurisdiction on the basis of everybody having 150 instead of less than 150. So I don't see that ultimately it's going to make a difference. And again, all of the jurisdictions that I've been privy to listen to or talk to or hear on our executive director calls have said we're not concerned about substantial equivalency or mobility because and several of them in their legislation are now saying if you're licensed in another jurisdiction, then we're going to accept the fact that you're equivalently licensed with us and you can come practice in our state. That's mobility. But if you come and practice in our jurisdiction, then you agree to be subject to our disciplinary process also. So it's the same. Nobody has any real stickler issues about, you know, can you go here? Now, if you want to move there and get a reciprocal license from that state, you might have some different requirements. But if you want to practice there, you know, as long as you're not establishing an office in that state as your primary office, you don't have an issue with mobility. So some of the other states in here, and you'll see there's a column here, the last column is called automatic mobility.
Yeah.
And several of them say, no, they don't have it, or it's NA, but some of them say, yes, we do. And automatic mobility is becoming something that a lot of people, a lot of jurisdictions are thinking about. Just basically saying, if you're licensed over there, you can come and work over here. You don't need a license, etc. But if you do anything wrong, you're subject to whatever we decide to do to you. So same kind of thing. But I just wanted everybody to be aware because you're going to hear a lot about this over the next year, I think, coming and going. And it's good to note that out of these 9 states, all of them have introduced legislation, but the only one that's actually passed anything is Ohio. And Ohio passed it in the House and the Senate, and the governor signed it. So it's effective It's law, but it's effective January 1st, 2026.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, but that's the only one that's actually passed anything and actually had anything signed into law. None of the others have gone past the introductory phase, so it's all in committee somewhere.
So I'm curious what they're telling their students, because if it's effective January 26th, I wonder what the universities in Ohio are telling the students.
Yeah.
Don't need, just wait, just get your 120 or your bachelor's and then.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a bachelor's degree and
Just
you
wait
have
for
2
it to
years'
pass.
experience, just wait till the effective date and get a license in Ohio.
Okay.
And effectively, if you're licensed in Ohio, then nobody else is gonna say you can't work here.
Yeah.
At this point.
I know when we had the 2 years experience requirement, used to require public accounting experience, right? And
A
then,
long time ago.
long time ago, and then that went away, just said any relevant
Any relevant
experience.
experience, yeah,
Okay.
public, private, government, but under the supervision of a licensed CPA.
Okay. So what do we want to do in Guam? What would be beneficial for us? I
At
mean,
this point, um,
and what did you guys say at the annual meeting in the breakout? Was there any?
Well, that enhanced year did not go over very well.
No,
You said the framework that they laid out was not,
Yeah.
the pathway was just
Yeah.
thumbs down from everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know any
like a
jurisdiction that said,
non-starter,
yeah,
yeah.
we support that.
It was like that, long time ago, they had that, they tried to pass that.
Cognitor,
Yeah,
cognitor.
you gotta be old to remember that.
That's over 20 years.
Oh,
Yeah,
a
I
long
think,
time
right?
ago.
Yeah.
We just got, I guess, just got knocked
Yeah.
down, okay.
Yeah, that was in the 2002 to 2004 timeframe.
But you know what's interesting? Don't know if I wanted to ask that is, because what was put forth was, I guess, approved or accepted by AICPA and NASBA. So, you know, what's going through their minds in terms of looking at it and
Well-
saying, hey, this is good for us, please.
I think that alternative pathway thing was just kind of a Band-Aid approach to prevent these states from doing what they're doing. They were trying to come up with something that it was an alternative that didn't actually look like you're reverting to the bachelor's in 10 or master's in 1, which is the way it was always been. But you know, there's no empirical evidence that shows there's any real difference in terms of protecting the public or in the performance of CPAs on the whole. And like I said before in the meetings that I brought up the issue, there is no one jurisdiction that can stand up and say all our CPAs have 150 hours and they're better than the CPAs that have less than 150 hours in 2 years. Nobody can say that. And there's no evidence that shows that. The only thing that does show is that in some jurisdictions, the 150-hour requirement, which is required to sit for the exam, means that you've got your master's degree before you even sit. The only thing that shows is that they have a little bit better exam performance. But even in all those jurisdictions that have higher performance, when I look at like at our jurisdiction where we have a pre-education completion program, so you can sit for the exam before you finish your education. And the difference in our grade point average for our candidates, which mostly are English as a second language foreign candidates, the difference in the grade point, earned grade point average from each section is less than 1 to 1.5 points. So if our people can take it, having not completed their entire degree and speaking English as a second language, and come within 1 point of the people who have master's degrees already and speak English as a native language, I don't see that there's any real evidence that it makes it that much difference. Okay. So at this point, I'm thinking that, I mean, from my perspective, I think as executive director, I think the chief concern we have is that our CPAs can be licensed and can go to any other jurisdiction, so they have equivalency or reciprocity or whatever. And I think that's all that I'm really concerned with at this point. And given the fact that we don't have that many local candidates, it's manageable at this point, and UOG has a program that will allow them to get the education they require. I think at this point, we could go either way, and I'm not sure that it's gonna make a whole lot of difference in the end. It may, to one or two jurisdictions that may decide that, yeah, we'll let you practice under mobility, but you can't get a license here. You can't move here and get a license in the reciprocity unless you do ABC. There's always one in the crowd, right?
So, the thing is, we have the MAC program now. And if, let's say we go back to 120 in 2 years.
Yeah.
The MAC program almost seems
Yeah, unnecessary.
not necessary anymore, so,
I don't think it will sustain.
yeah, and
Yeah.
plus, yeah, unless people look at it as a way to help them study for the exam, that's a lot, that's cost and that's, the time, but.
Well, I think that's part of it, but actually our MAC program gives you the 30 hours, and I think the total cost of the program is about 10,000.
1,000.
And 1 year of time, of course, because it's all online, but I think that's advantageous to our candidates versus in the States where a lot of the programs are double or triple that cost.
I mean, that's right, at the end of I guess the program, you leave with an MBA, or was it an MBA, a master's,
Right. Yeah, you're either a master's.
I don't know if you have a bump in pay in government if you get a master's is,
I have no idea. I would think so, probably so.
I don't know, so.
I don't know.
So what do we tell students now, or, accounting, not necessarily students, graduates who have not passed the exam yet? And
Well-
let's say need 150 hours, they're wondering, because they're probably aware of this, should they wait? What's Guam's law rules? Should they sign up for the MAC program? What do
Well,
they need to
I
do?
don't think at this point, I mean. Just my gut feeling at this point is that we don't do anything until we see what happens with some of this stuff. Cause
Yeah.
you've got some major states here, and then
You
when
got
you look
Texas.
at Texas and Ohio. And Virginia, and these people have some area like
I
Oregon.
think California's headed in this direction. too.
California.
Oh, right away, yeah, I think. they're-
California's working on it, Washington's working on it, Washington State's working on it. So some of the bigger ones, I mean, you got Texas and Florida here, so. Between Texas, Florida, New York, California and Washington State, that's probably the five of the bigger.
So it looks like
Yeah.
we're gonna be heading in this direction, we just need to somehow,
Yeah,
have a good discussion,
At
and-
this point, we just need to kind of watch and wait and see what they come up with this, and then we'll go to the regional meetings, and I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll hear a lot about it.
At some point, there's gonna be a new UAA, right, that may reflect this sort of
Well,
approach to.
Yeah, because that exposure
Yeah.
graph
Yeah.
with
They have
changes to the UAA, so ultimately, I think. There's gonna have to be a kind of a come together meeting here, one way or the other, between AICPA and NASBA and the boards.
Yeah,
Because AICPA and NASBA can recommend all they want, but they have no authority to require anything. Only the boards can actually require what they want for their jurisdiction. So.
yeah, okay.
And that point, I think, was also made very clear to NASBA and the AICPA that, you can talk all you want about mobility and substantial equivalency, but you have no authority to determine what that actually is. Only the boards do.
yeah.
So maybe we should hear from the Guam Society, see what, if it makes any,
Okay,
Any difference?
we can ask the vice president of the Guam
who's the vice
Society
president?
what she thinks. Is she-
Oh, Tolling's vice president?
Uh-huh.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, it's a small community. I mean, I don't know that anybody's gonna want us to jump to change the rules until we see what most of the other states are doing.
Yeah, I think that's right, but what
We're
do
next
we,
to the last, the last go around, right?
We
Well, that's not for
were,
us.
yes, we were the next to the last jurisdiction.
Yeah, we were the next to
To
last.
change to the 150 because, we didn't have a MAC program and, you know, we didn't wanna fluff out our candidates and we were still considered substantially equivalent. And we enacted it in 2016. And the UAA provided for a 5-year phase-in program, so that took us up to 2021 where it actually became a requirement. But you also have to take into account the fact that 99% of our candidates have 150 hours already when they sign up as a candidate, especially the foreign ones. As many of them have second degrees where they already have way enough education to
Yeah.
qualify.
It's really just for the Guam.
So it's for the accounting and business that they take, so. It's really just for our local candidates who may just have the bachelor's and, you know. So, but I think our overriding concern is that we maintain substantial equivalency to the point that our licensees can go anywhere else in the United States in practice. That to me is the real issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think that our focus should be to try to get that exam that they're requiring at the university changed. I mean, I think that should be a higher priority. So that we can get, more students in the program.
More students or more candidates, I agree with
Well, how
that.
does that work now since Ed is there? I mean, from our last,
Now there's 3, so whenever they present anything, there's 3 accounting professors. That can.
so this is probably where we asked
faculty.
Martha to try and propose something. You know, like that, I guess we tried to do before, or not we, but.
Yeah,
Those,
yeah, that's the only way it can get done.
Dave, I'm just wondering, this is Francis. I'm just wondering if, the proposal of the 120, so that would mean that they would require a 2 hours of, 2 years of experience. So we do have a lot of candidates that do have that 150 hours of credit. So does that mean that once most states go into the 120, are we able to have a provision wherein we keep just 1 year of experience in order for them to get licensed?
We can, yeah,
Up to us.
most of the states, at least the ones that are introducing this legislation, but even then. Most of the states have always said, if you have a baccalaureate, you needed 2 years. If you had a master's, you needed 1 year. So, and then the final 150-hour requirement said you need 150 hours of education and 1 year of experience, period. So, like the chart here says that, are they removing the 150-hour requirement? Some say no, some say yes, but they still, even the ones that remove the 150-hour requirement are still saying in their legislation that if you have less than 150, you need the 2 years experience, but if you have the 150, you still only need the 1 year of experience.
So
Yeah.
maybe that's the silver lining in there is that if they do actually have the 150, then they don't have to work 2 years worth of experience. It's only the ones that are having that 120 that requires 2 years.
Or they're
So-
less than 150 and, yeah,
Yeah, like in Virginia, you see that notation there.
right, yeah.
but ultimately, it doesn't really matter. People are gonna work more than 1 year. or 2 years.
Most
Is
of
it-
them, yeah, yeah, I mean,
It's not like gonna work 1 year and then retire.
like we have our two candidates here getting licensed, they're going from an inactive license, which they got for passing the exam. And completing their education, and now they've got their experience, so they're moving to active license. And so yeah, I don't think that's an issue. I think the bachelor's 2 years, master's 1 year, I think that'll continue. It's just a question of, is there gonna be any jurisdiction that is going to try to say, you can't come here because you didn't do it our way? And I really don't think that's ultimately gonna happen. At least I don't know of anybody that's actually been behind that kind of requirement. Although there are a couple of jurisdictions that actually have some state laws that, might preclude, somebody who doesn't meet their requirements specifically. There's one or two that basically say you have to do it A, B, C, D in our order, or we won't accept it. So, but the requirements are still the 151 year, for licensures. But I think at this point, we just kind of wait and see how this shakes out over the next 6 months to a year.
Yeah, no,
And one way or another, there's gonna have to be a come together meeting between NASBA, the AICPA, and the rest of the jurisdictions. So,
Yep.
the boards. But I did want everybody to be fully aware of what's going on. So if you hear about it, you're forewarned,
Yeah.
forearmed, right?
But what's interesting, I think, though, is that now you can become a certified public accountant without ever working in public accounting.
Oh, well,
That's how it is now.
it
Yeah.
took me a while to realize.
Can't
that
do
you could-
assurance work. Right,
It took me a while to realize that you could actually become a certified public accountant without ever having had a tax or a business law class. I mean, that's part
Yeah.
of the basic professions, but you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's where that stands, and I'm sure we'll hear about it in the NASDAQ. I'll hear about it at the executive director meeting in March, and then at the regional meetings, we'll hear about it again. I'll also be the ACPA council. Hear about it then too, I'm sure.
Okay, yeah, but I think we need to somehow, hopefully something happens soon, so that at least Guam can take some action, so we really need to go. Forward fast, because, if we get, if we're able to eliminate that test, that just gets the students, more students, which is good. And then get them to be licensed sooner, you don't have to do the 2 years.
Yeah,
That
I always agree
would
with
be
that.
great. I mean, they don't have to do the 5 years.
The
5 years.
master's.
Yeah,
program.
So you'll get them faster, I'm assuming, and then there's quite a number of graduates here that don't have the 150 that
Right.
are not taking the exam for whatever reason, or are trying to look for ways to get the 150 right now. So I think that if that does happen, where we go back to the 120 and 2 years experience, I think there might be more sitting for the exam. I'm just assuming.
Could be,
There's a lot.
yeah, maybe, I just want to clarify that we don't really ever, our law has never actually said 120. We've always just said baccalaureate
Bachelor's, yeah,
degree
okay.
or equivalent. So, and I think, that's one of the things that California is proposing, is to move away from this many hours, that many hours, just say bachelor's degree or master's degree. And they don't really care if it's 120 or 132 or 184 or 159, or it doesn't matter. They're just basically going to say bachelor's degree or master's degree. Yeah, so.
Okay.
So stop counting all the hours. Now, that's not to say that you still don't have a requirement for business hours and accounting hours. And we're still with the 24/24, and most jurisdictions are. Some have 30, some have 32, some have 12, some have 18. But by and large, most jurisdictions are with the 24 core business requirements and 24 core accounting requirements, course requirements, upper level course requirements. And we would keep that no matter what. Okay.
Okay,
Move on. The next item we had is just a kind of a informational update here. It's what I covered in the last society meeting. It's about the peer review board approved peer review standards update number 2, reviewing a firm's system of quality management and omnibus technical enhancements. It's PRSU number 2. The changes were made to account for new quality management standards issued by the auditing standards boards, which are effective for peer reviews ending on or after December 31st, 2025. So firms have until December 15th, 2025 to establish a quality management system in alignment with the new AICPA QM standards, quality management standard. So this notice was put out by NASBA to have the boards review, their definition in reference to the peer reviews and any references to the quality control standards or that kind of thing we may have to change in the rules. So, and then they noted that the PCAOB has made it clear that they intend to continue using terminology relating to the firm's system of quality control as outlined in the new QC 1000, the firm's system of quality control. So it's just for informational purposes.
Does that apply to a firm that performs any test services or just audit or?
Around, it's across the board. The quality management standards, this is relative to peer reviews, so it's mostly relative to firms who perform any service that would require them to have a peer review.
Oh, yeah, so does compilations require?
In our law, it does.
It does.
Yeah.
Which is too bad.
Our existing law, it does.
It's
So,
it's really not much.
but, the system for quality control and they have standards, but the bottom line is they're trying to push everybody into actually paying attention to some quality control, because that's, I guess, what they're considering the main issue with a lot of deficiencies is that if there was somebody looking at it up front, kind of like, proactive versus reactive. If you're paying attention to it up front, you have a lot less problems, on the outcomes. That's kind of where they're coming from, but specifically, this is relative to firms that are required to have peer reviews. Now, there are various things that require you to have peer reviews, not just audit or review, but compilation or any kind of other test, services.
Well, so far for Guam, we only have 2 undergoing peer reviews
At this point.
at this point, and then 1 more potentially.
Yeah. So. But then also you have to realize that if you're just doing compilations, you probably get away with a desk review versus one site kind of thing.
Yeah, obviously, right?
Yeah. Or you just stop doing compilations.
Unless the reviewer wants to use it as a reason to come here.
That's the same thing as like with the government audits. I mean, all these federal grants that require an audit. But
Yeah.
most firms don't want to do it because it costs them so much to get qualified to do it. I mean, the investment for the CPE and all the rest, easily all the CPE you have to do either to do just a regular audit or review or
Well,
do a government
it's,
audit is even worse.
the program is more specialized than a
Yeah.
financial audit, so you have to follow, you have to be trained on
Yeah,
it.
in the government audit, you have to
Yeah.
have the specific CPE just to qualify to do it.
And just doing 1 audit a year is just.
You're
not
never
do it,
gonna make enough to cover the cost
Yeah.
of the CPE. Almost. Yeah, so that's a big issue. So.
Okay,
So we move to the finances here.
so we have here 1230.
We have the December statement. I've estimated it. The application fees have a 20,000 estimate and the 66. But I'm basically estimating through just linear regression. So far it's been plus or minus $1,000 because it's pretty steady at this point. And fortunately, we never saw the actual decline that we thought we'd have in 2024 due to the new exam. So, and applicants are holding steady, even though they're down in total numbers. But the way NASBA restructured the evaluation process versus the section process, it used to be you could sign up for $100 and take 1 section or 4 sections.
Okay,
But now you pay for 1 section at a time. So if you're gonna take the 4 sections, you're gonna pay for 4 sections. But overall, I think we're well on track to exceed our revenue budget. Expenses are in line at this point.
should we talk about your email? Next meeting, okay.
Yeah, I think so, but, if you look at the graph back here, so you can tell that, the FY 25 section. Went from 663 to 725 between October and November. And the applicants basically are holding steady, and went from 222, 237 to 233, so. It's basic, but, the big up top sections for 24 on that, of course, October, November of last year's. Or, which is really 2023, which was when everybody tried to get BEC in, so. So we should have more data next year. And then I've got the budget here, because we need to submit our budget to the legislature in January 30th. So I did the usual budget and projection, so.
Who's the appropriation chair?
What's it?
Who's the appropriation chair?
I don't know that we're under the appropriation chair at this point. Arlene called and she was trying to get a handle on who actually is our oversight senator at this point. And I'm not sure who that is. She came up with two names.
Hello?
Yeah, Tello and one other one, and I'm not sure who it was.
Duenas is fine.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's either Chris or Tello, but we haven't had any confirmation of which one it is. Probably Chris, but, at this point, we're still haven't had any real confirmation, so. But we'll find out, but, basically. We just submit our budget to the legislature by January 30th, so. We're okay with whichever one comes up. We did get an email from, the outgoing finance chair, Joe S. To submit everything, so we'll do what we usually do and wait for them to respond. But, if you look back on the projections page, which is the very last page of this one.
Oh, okay.
The one with the graph on it, the yellow and brown. I don't know if you can read it. I mean, I can read it. I have mono. I don't know about.
I don't know how you read it. You can have reading glasses or nothing.
No, I have mono visions. So, yeah, but, basically what I did was just do the linear forecast and then regression, for the applicants. And I came up with a high and low, based on the percentage change in the forecast from 23 to 24 and 24 to 25 versus the basic average of or annualized average of the 3 years. So that's where I came up with a low increase of 3.2% and a high increase of 33%. And I just took a geo mean of the thing, which came out at like basically 11 to 12%. So that's what I used. And I think that's reasonable. It got me to some reasonable numbers here, but what we have to understand is still the only real data we have for the new level of revenue, where it starts with FY 24, which actually started in October of 23. So NASBA changed their process, like I was saying, about evaluations versus sections, where we used to have what we have here, where first time and re-exam. So first time was the evaluation included, the application fee included evaluation, all that stuff. And the re-exam was just how many you want to take another section again here, pay this. But at that time, the re-exam was $100. You could take one section or 4 sections. Now the basically first time and re-exam has actually become application evaluations, which is the one price, and re-exam is now just sections. So, and everybody pays the same price per section. So you don't pay one price for 2 or 3 or 4, you pay one price for one section, period. So there's a little bit of a change there. So what I was using, the data I was using basically was from our October 23 up through the year to date to make these projections. So But I think they're pretty reasonable and, given that we didn't experience the kind of decline we thought we would because of the score holds and everything else, it said you can't take the new section until you get a score. You know, and there were like 2 to 3 months for a score delay. Somehow the reduction or the decrease in applicants that we thought we'd get, we didn't get. It stayed up there, so that's what I was looking at with the linear forecast, and that's the numbers I used to come up with our new estimate.
Okay. Well, you're essentially just budgeting similar to 24's actual.
Right, I'm using that as a basis and going to 24, and then I looked at the 2 months we have out of FY 25 and annualized that versus just linear regression to it. And then put all of that together to come up with the GeoMean data, so. That
If,
gives me
if the test center does close, it won't have a big impact on our revenues because most of the applicants take their tests somewhere else anyway.
correct, we've only realized 20,000 or so, well, we had $9,400, $94.50 in FY 22, 23,000 last year and 30,000, 23,000 in FY 23 and 30,000 last year. And given the fact they're gonna close it at the end, essentially the end of this fiscal year, we might wind up with 10 to 20,000. That's why I'm basically only budgeting 15,000 from the test center for revenue, so. No, it won't have any major impact on our revenues or our operations. So basically, that's how I've come up with the budgeted revenues here for FY 26. If you look at FY 24, we did 900,000. And we budgeted FY 25 at 700, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna exceed that probably closer to 800 or 850. And I don't think we'd have an issue in FY 26 of hitting the 885 in revenue overall. So that's with the essentially moving from the FY 24, we had 10,800 applicants and sections paid for. And I'm budgeting for the 12,500, 12,489. So what's that, a 1,600 increase, about a 15% overall increase, and I think that's viable. You know, the other side of that is that there are more kids going to school, and as the economy has gotten more difficult, people start paying more attention to their money. It seems like every time the economy gets difficult, more people go to school for accounting.
Oh, that's good.
Fact of life.
Okay. Okay, do we need to approve this?
Yeah, we need an approval, unless, you guys can.
I move
review it.
to approve the budget as presented.
Second,
Okay, looks like it's been second, so the budget proposed by the executive director is approved.
Okay, so then
So essentially looks like the surplus goes to the visiting professor program.
I budget all of the surplus to
Yeah.
go to as a contribution. I mean, we have the million one
Yeah.
in our bank account. So I mean, it's better it earns more money in the endowment.
Yeah.
And also puts it in a safe place, so to speak. But I always just take the difference of whatever's left over and budget it as our contribution.
Yeah.
But again, it's a budget and it gets appropriated, so. It's up to us if we make it or not.
So as long as the money's in the endowment, the university cannot redirect it unless they get our approval? Is that how that works?
That's correct. We are an agency advised endowment fund. And in the establishing document, it establishes the standing committee that basically oversees the fund. John is the chair, but then it includes the UOG, executive vice president, the VP finance. And then the chair of the AGA and the chair of the Guam Society of CPAs. And anybody else that gets appointed and wants to serve, so. Basically, the way it's written though, is that it's up to the Board of Accountancy as the agency to advise. You know, how they think it should be used in conjunction with the UOG faculty or the UOG people on the standing committee, and they make the decision. So the overriding main endowment board cannot do anything with the funds unless and until they determine that, well, we as an agency or, you know, as a program are basically defunct and we're not doing anything, or we, you know, abandon it or whatever, then they are free to take the money or whatever's left. I mean, presume we spend the entire fund down to a couple $1,000 and said, we're done, we're not gonna do it anymore. They would be free to do whatever they wanted to with the $2,000. To the extent that they meet the requirements of you know, viable disposition relative to the endowment requirements in themselves. So they could contribute it to somebody else or roll it into another fund or scholarship or something. They can't just outright take it and buy it and pay down building mortgages like they seem to want to sometimes.
Yeah. So like, for example, the contracts that, like for Ed Conrad, when for his agreement, I guess we signed it also as well.
Right.
That's how we
Yeah,
keep on top of what they're spending money for.
yeah, yeah. So the standing committee is basically in charge of it, but the Board of Accountancy is the agency that's charged with advising how we think.
Okay.
There are actually an agency advised endowment fund in the establishing documents.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, any other
That's
any
basically
other items to discuss?
Well, the only other thing is that I'll be going to the executive director meeting in March. And then there's the Western Regional meeting is middle of June in New Orleans. So anybody who's interested in
New Orleans.
going to that, let me know.
It's a dangerous place.
Yeah, well, it depends on where you go and
Get off the sidewalk.
when.
And when?
Depends on where you go and when, you know, well, I'll never go to Mardi Gras.
Is it June 6th?
It's the middle
Mid-June.
of June. I think it's like around the 15th, 16th or something.
Okay.
12th, somewhere. So if anybody's interested,
That'd be the tell.
let me know. You know, everybody's jumping to go.
All depends on other travel plans, right?
Yeah, well, I have the AICPA council meeting towards the end of May. And then the Western region, it's like the second week of June, I think, something like that, second or third week. So I'll probably go to the one in May and then stay for some other stuff and then do the NASA meeting, come back.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
that's all I have.
We're able to discuss about the scholarships, or is this still just one for now?
At this point.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no other items to discuss, can I hear a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
A second.
Second, okay.
Okay,
All right, meeting adjourned.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This video? Yeah, right, okay.
You're waiting to down.
Yeah, I'm heading to the owl.
Bye.